Lucas never planned to see him again. Honestly, he had prayed he wouldn't. But life hated him, or maybe enjoyed watching him trip over the same man twice. And this time, the man who once crushed him with a single night was staring directly at the child in his arms. The moment Ethan Caldwell's eyes widened, Lucas felt every bone in his body lock. The grocery store around them faded into a silent, suffocating tunnel. He could hear his own heartbeat pounding like a drum warning him to run. Ethan stepped closer, the soft beeping of checkout scanners the only sound between them. "Is that your kid?" Lucas nodded, throat dry, praying Ethan wouldn't ask the next question. But Ethan always did the thing Lucas dreaded most. "How old is he?" 2 years and 3 months. Lucas didn't speak it aloud. He didn't need to. Ethan's breath broke. So did Lucas. The story doesn't start here, though. It started 2 years earlier, in Chicago, after a fundraiser neither of them wanted to attend. Lucas had been a journalism intern, forced to cover the event. Ethan had been the arrogant political consultant everyone whispered about, the one with a brilliant mind and a reputation sharp enough to cut glass. They collided 3 times that night, the first with spilled wine, the second with an argument about a speech Ethan had written, and the third against the wall of a hotel room neither remembered walking into. Lucas woke alone, the sheets cold. Ethan left a business card, nothing else. "Thanks for last night. Call if you ever want round 2. Lucas threw the card away. Then he found out he was pregnant. No one believed him at first. Not his family. Not the doctor. Not even Lucas himself. But every test said the same thing, and every kick later proved the impossible true. He swore he would never tell Ethan. Their worlds were too different. Lucas was a broke college kid juggling 3 jobs and a future that kept slipping through his fingers. Ethan was a storm in a suit, powerful and unreachable. Their one night was a spark swallowed by reality long before sunrise. Raising Mateo alone was hard, but Lucas did it. He loved the boy with every inch of his soul, even when he had nothing left to give. Their tiny apartment in Denver was barely big enough for a crib, but it was home. Warm, safe, the opposite of the chaos Ethan Caldwell carried around like perfume. And then fate shoved them together again between aisles of cereal boxes. Ethan finally spoke, voice trembling. "Lucas, why didn't you tell me? Because you weren't supposed to stay. Because you weren't supposed to matter. Because I was scared." But Lucas said none of those things. He simply hugged Mateo a little closer. Ethan wasn't angry. Shocked, yes. Confused, absolutely. But underneath it all was something Lucas didn't expect: tenderness. The kind that made old wounds ache. "Can we talk?" Ethan asked softly. Lucas hesitated. Every instinct screamed no. Every part of him that had survived these last 2 years warned him that proximity to Ethan was dangerous. But then Mateo looked up at Ethan with wide hazel eyes and the same tiny birthmark on his left cheek. Lucas knew the truth would never stay buried. So he nodded. They met the next day in a quiet park. Ethan arrived early, sitting rigidly on a bench like he was preparing for a courtroom trial. He apologized first. Not for the night they'd shared, or for leaving, but for being someone Lucas couldn't trust. "I was a mess back then," Ethan admitted. "I chased storms and called it ambition." Lucas sat beside him but not touching. "You still do." Ethan didn't deny it. They talked for hours about everything except the one thing Lucas feared most: what now? When Mateo toddled across the grass, Ethan knelt, letting the boy place a dandelion crown onto his head. And for the first time, Lucas saw something break inside Ethan. Softly, quietly, like a man realizing he'd missed 2 years of sunrises. "I want to be here," Ethan said, turning to Lucas. "If you'll let me." Lucas swallowed hard. He didn't trust him. Not yet. But he also couldn't ignore the sincerity etched into Ethan's features. "You don't get to come and go," Lucas said. "This isn't a hobby. He's a child." "I know. And I'm not leaving again." Lucas wished he could believe him, because his heart still remembered the heat of that night. His body still remembered the taste of Ethan's breath. His mind remembered the humiliation of waking up alone. And that was the problem. Ethan Caldwell was the only man Lucas ever hated for breaking him, and the only man he ever wanted to kiss again. And now their lives were tangled by the little boy picking flowers at their feet. Lucas exhaled. "One step at a time," he said. "That's all I can give." Ethan nodded. "Then we start there." Their story didn't fix itself in one day, or one week. But here, on this bench, something shifted. Not romance. Not yet, but something gentler. Something possible. Something that felt a lot like hope. Ethan showed up every morning for the next month. Sometimes with coffee. Sometimes with breakfast. Sometimes with nothing but tired eyes and a determination that startled Lucas every time their gazes met. He never pushed. Never demanded. Never tried to claim a place he hadn't earned. Instead, he learned how to hold Mateo properly, how to pack a diaper bag, how to calm the boy during his dramatic toddler meltdowns. He learned how to fold tiny clothes and how to heat bottles without burning the kitchen down. And Lucas watched him, not just with suspicion, but with something warmer, something he had fought hard to bury. One evening, after a long day juggling work and parenting, Lucas opened the door to find Ethan kneeling on the floor, patiently helping Mateo stack blocks. Ethan looked up and smiled, slow and soft, and something inside Lucas shifted like snow melting under sunlight. "You can go shower," Ethan said. "I got him." Lucas didn't move. He stood there, staring at the man he once swore was a mistake. Somehow, Ethan didn't feel like a mistake anymore. He felt like a question Lucas was finally ready to answer. A few days later, everything cracked open. They were in the car, Mateo asleep in the back seat, when Ethan finally asked the question Lucas feared the most. "Why didn't you call me that morning?" Lucas looked out the window. "Because you didn't ask me to. Because I knew you wouldn't stay. Because falling for you was the worst thing I could have done." He didn't say the last part, but Ethan heard it anyway. "I hurt you, and I didn't even realize it," Ethan said. His hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Lucas, I want to earn back what I ruined." Lucas shook his head. "You can't earn trust with apologies." "I know. That's why I'm showing up." It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't romantic. It was honest. Painfully, beautifully honest. And Lucas felt something inside him unravel. The first time Ethan brushed Lucas's hand by accident, they both froze. Electricity sparked through the small space between them. Lucas pretended it meant nothing. Ethan didn't pretend at all. "I felt that," he whispered. Lucas didn't look at him. "So did I." The shift between them wasn't sudden but steady, like a tide pulling them closer no matter how hard Lucas tried to stand still. One night, Ethan stayed late after putting Mateo to bed. Lucas was wiping down the counters when he felt Ethan's presence before he heard him. Lucas turned, and Ethan was standing there, hesitant and open in a way Lucas had never seen. "Do you hate me?" Lucas almost laughed. "Hate you I've tried. It never sticks." Ethan stepped closer. "What does stick?" "The way you look at my son like he's the sun. The way you've changed so much. The way you're trying." Then Ethan was close enough for Lucas to feel the warmth of his breath. "I want another chance," Ethan whispered. "With you. With us. But only if you say yes." Lucas closed his eyes. Every memory of that night in Chicago flashed behind his eyelids, the passion, the regret, the heartbreak. But then newer memories followed: Ethan rocking Mateo to sleep, Ethan fixing the broken cabinet door, Ethan laughing softly when Mateo called him Isun. Lucas opened his eyes and found Ethan waiting, vulnerable and steady. "Yes," Lucas breathed, "but slow. I'm not ready for another storm." "Then we'll take it slow," Ethan said, smiling softly. "No storms. Just steps." The first kiss happened in the kitchen, gentle and trembling, like two people relearning a language they once knew by heart. Lucas felt his chest tighten, not with fear but with relief. Ethan kissed him like an apology and a promise all at once. When they pulled away, Lucas rested his forehead against Ethan's. "This scares me." "Me too," Ethan whispered. "But some things are worth the fear." Weeks turned into months, and the rhythm of their lives began to merge. Not perfectly, not easily, but beautifully. One chilly morning, Lucas found Ethan and Mateo asleep together on the couch. Mateo sprawled across Ethan's chest, drooling. Ethan snoring softly with an arm thrown protectively around the boy. Lucas paused, breath catching. Realizing that this image, the man who once shattered him now sleeping beside the child they created together, was everything he never dared imagine. And maybe everything he'd been waiting for. But life doesn't stop throwing curveballs. When Ethan received a lucrative offer in Washington, D.C., everything wobbled again. It was the kind of opportunity most people would chase without hesitation. Lucas felt the old fear creeping back. "You're leaving." Ethan shook his head before Lucas even finished the sentence. "Not without you. Not without Mateo. I'm done choosing ambition over what matters." Lucas stared at him, heart thundering. "You'd give that up?" "Not give up. Trade up," Ethan said softly. "I'm choosing my family." Family. The word landed so gently it almost broke Lucas. They decided to move together. Not as a perfect couple, not as a flawless story, but as something real. Something earned. Something chosen. On their last night in Denver, Lucas stood on the balcony while the city glowed below. Ethan slipped his arms around Lucas's waist from behind, resting his chin on his shoulder. "Can I say something?" Ethan murmured. Lucas leaned back into him. "You can say anything. I'm glad fate shoved me into that grocery store." Lucas snorted. "You were standing in the baby food aisle like a lost man." "I was lost," Ethan said, "until you handed me a truth I didn't deserve." Lucas turned, cupping Ethan's face. "And now I'm exactly where I want to be, with the two people who feel like home." Lucas kissed him softly, slow and sure, feeling the certainty settle in his bones. Their story had started as a mistake, a mess, a night neither of them planned. But standing there, wrapped in Ethan's arms, Lucas finally understood something. Some mistakes are really beginnings in disguise, and some enemies are really soulmates waiting for the truth to catch up. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.